Hi guys, welcome back to English with Max. This video is going to be a little different to what I normally do. Several of my followers have asked me to do some videos in which I speak at my normal, natural speed. And I've also had some requests for more advanced videos. So I'm going to do this video without a script, and I'm also going to try to do it without editing it. However, I do have a few notes here, so you will sometimes see me looking down. Now this video is going to be about driving. I'll talk about driving in Australia, I'll talk about getting your license, I'll talk about me as a driver, and I'll also talk about some of the annoying habits that people have on the road. Now this is a video for advanced learners, so if you're a beginner or an intermediate learner and you're finding it a bit difficult, you can turn on the subtitles. I'll make proper subtitles for the video. I'll also put some vocabulary in the description, so some of the terms and words that I use. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about driving in Australia. Well, in Australia we drive on the left-hand side of the road. In other words, we drive on the right side. That means that the driver's seat is on the right. Yes, we drive on the left and the driver's seat is on the right in the car. Now, because this is a civilized nation, we have the metric system. We don't have the imperial system anymore. Don't get offended about that, guys. People get so offended on the internet. Yeah, that's just a bit of tongue-in-cheek, okay? Because we have the metric system, our speed limits are in kilometers per hour. The maximum speed limit is 110, except in the Northern Territory, where some places you can do 130. We do have some places where the speed limit is technically unlimited, but it's not like the Autobahn in Germany. Okay, these are rural country roads where you really do not want to do 150 k's an hour, believe me. Right, now let's talk about getting a driver's license. Well, I can only talk about Australia, and actually I can only talk about my state because it changes from state to state. I also got my license about 15 years ago. That shows my age. So it might have changed a little bit since then. Now, how do you get your license? Well, firstly, you need to get your L's. L stands for learner's license or learner's permit. Anyway, doesn't matter. Learner's license. And when you have your L's, you get like a yellow piece of cardboard or plastic, and it's got a black L on it. And yeah, you have to stick that to your car. You can get that when you're 16. To get that, you have to pass a theoretical test that's basically just about road rules. We don't have to learn about parts of the car or anything, which is good for me. It was good for me. Yeah, it's a pretty easy test. It's a multiple choice test that you do on a computer. If you pass, you get your learner's license. Now, when you have your L's, you can drive with a fully licensed driver. I should add as well that getting your license in Australia is actually relatively cheap. I lived in Europe for a few years, for several years, and at least when I was there, I know that in Germany and France, it costs a couple €1,000 or something like that to get your license, because you had to pay for driving classes, for professional driving classes. In Australia, you don't have to do that. You only have to pay like administrative fees when you get your different licenses and every time you sit a test. So in total, it costs, I know, a few $100s. Maybe it's a bit more now, but when I went through it, I think maybe I spent $500 or something like that. What else? Oh yes, so your L's. So when you have your L's, you have to drive a minimum number of hours with a licensed driver. When I was doing it, it was 50 hours, but I think now it's about 120. I did about 70 or 80. That was recommended. You can technically cheat because you have to write down your hours in a logbook, and there isn't really a way for them to check it, you know. You have to put when you started, when you stopped, the number of kilometers, yeah, and then they have a quick look at it. I didn't cheat because I didn't see the point, and I'm also always afraid of getting into trouble. But yeah, technically you can cheat. So my dad taught me how to drive. He was a good teacher, a bit impatient sometimes, but he taught me well. I had one professional driving class, and the instructor said that I had been taught well, so yeah, props to my dad. I was lucky. Right, then I went for my practical test. When you're 17, you can get your Ps, your provisional license. There are some people who get their license on their 17th birthday. They're really eager to get their license. I was pretty eager, but I think I waited, I don't know, 1 or 2 months. So I was 17 and 2 months old or something like that. The day I got my license was a little stressful. I mean, these tests are always stressful. But when we went to the place where you do your test, and they checked the car, they checked that all the lights were working, and it turned out that the brake lights weren't working. So they said to us, well, you can go around the corner to a mechanic and, you know, maybe he can fix it. So luckily we got it fixed pretty quickly, and we went back and I did my test. And I passed the first time! Yeah. I was very happy about that. It was probably the last time in my life that I parallel parked. Yeah. Now, when you have your provisional license, you can drive up to 90 kilometers an hour. So you can't go the full speed limit on the highway, but you can do 90. You also aren't allowed to drink any alcohol. When you have your full license, I mean, you can't drink a lot of alcohol, but you can drink a little bit. So yes, you have your red Ps for 1 year, and then when I was doing it, after the 1 year, I had to go and do another test. It was, I think it was called the hazards perception test, something like that. Now I think you have to do that test before you do your practical test. But anyway. You get the idea. So you got your Ls for 1 year, your red Ps for 1 year, and then you have your green Ps for another 2 years. And then after that, you can get your full license. What am I like as a driver? Well, I wouldn't say I'm a good driver because I don't have a lot of experience driving, but I'm a very cautious driver. I know that it's not very normal for a 32-year-old Australian to be inexperienced as a driver because our public transport isn't very good, so normally need to drive places. But I left home when I was 18. I went to Sydney, where I lived close to the city and there were lots of buses. Then when I was 20, I went to Europe and I lived in big cities that had good public transport. So I haven't done a lot of driving in my life. And I can only drive automatic cars. Most cars in Australia are automatic, so you don't actually need to know how to drive a manual car. A friend of mine did show me, like about 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, and I drove his car a couple of times, so I know the theory, but no, I can't drive manual cars. I've never had any accidents, but I think that's more a question of luck. Because I have a friend who's been in 2 accidents and neither of them were her fault. One time somebody hit her from behind and another time somebody ran a red light. So yeah. The funniest thing I probably did driving was when I didn't know how the windscreen wipers worked and I started them and couldn't stop them on a day when it was bright and sunny. So what I wanted to do was clean something. I hadn't been driving this car for very long, so I didn't really know how the windscreen wipers worked. And I wanted to clean them, so I sprayed the water. I wanted to clean the windscreen. I sprayed the water, I got it clean, but then I couldn't turn them off. Or I was like getting different speeds, but I couldn't turn them off entirely. And it was a bright, sunny day, and I had to drive on this main road for like 10 or 15 minutes, and I couldn't park anywhere. So I just had my windscreen wipers going the whole time. I imagine that it probably looked quite funny to the people who were driving in the other direction. One thing I don't do though, one thing I don't get is road rage. Road rage is when people get really angry when they're driving and they start shouting abuse at people, or they even like get out of their car and start beating up other drivers. If you look up road rage on YouTube, you will find some examples. I don't know, maybe it's because I meditate. Well, I don't know, I just don't get angry really easily. Normally I'm just happy that, you know, I'm alive. There wasn't a serious accident, yay! Always a bonus. I do swear at people sometimes though, you know, I say, you know, asshole, wanker, but I just say it to myself, and then I feel better. Now let's talk about some bad driving habits. Well, one thing that people do in Australia is that they overtake from the left. Here you are supposed to overtake from the right. To overtake is when you just go in front of somebody. So I'm here, somebody's here, they go like that, that's overtaking. But some people do it from the left and it's very dangerous and yeah, annoying. However, I think the most annoying thing is tailgating. Tailgating is when you drive too close to the person in front of you. So if you have somebody really close behind you, they are tailgating you. I don't know why people do this. I don't know if it's a power thing, or if they're impatient, or if they think they're going to save 5 seconds in their life. But in any case, it really pisses me off. Another thing that people do sometimes is not indicating. To indicate is when you turn on a certain light which shows that you are going to turn right or left. To be honest, this doesn't annoy me so much because I think we all occasionally forget to indicate. However, there's no excuse for tailgating. Tailgaters, they have issues. They do. And that's it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. I think the best way for you to absorb this vocabulary is if you watch it a couple more times, if you can bear listening to me. You don't necessarily have to watch it immediately, but maybe in a week or so, just turn it on and watch it once or twice. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to put them in the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. See you next time.